Hello everyone, this is Carbonomics. Chances are, if you're a follower of my content or searching for information on Aduro Clean Technologies, you're likely more of an ESG-oriented investor, or you at least understand the potential surrounding companies that can contribute to the various industries that will help clean up our planet. Previously, I've discussed carbon credit royalties through base carbon and more ESG or green-friendly exchanges like ABEX. But now I want to take a bit of a detour and talk about another industry I'm excited to invest in, plastic recycling. Especially as there are some near-term catalysts that I'd like to bring to your attention. Now, Aduro does offer a solution that works in the recycling of bitumen, also known as asphalt, and the creation of renewable fuels, which are large opportunities in their own right, as you can see from the TAM estimations here. But the main focus the company has right now is on the recycling of plastics. There's simply no disputing the fact that plastic pollution is a major problem. In our oceans, food supply, and even in our own bodies with the discovery of microplastics within our bloodstreams. If you want to see a great documentary on this, there's a documentary on Netflix called Seaspiracy, which kind of goes over the problems surrounding plastic in our oceans and the larger issues of overfishing in our environment and the oceans. Um, and the ocean's actually the best environment for sequestering carbon dioxide from the planet. So this really is a crucial problem that we need to solve. There's so many different ESG factors that potentially play into this space as well. And ESG's rise in popularity plays into the necessity surrounding, solving this problem and solving it soon. We have companies and governments around the world pledging to ensure, all plastic packaging is either reusable or recyclable by 2025. There are pacts based around varying levels of recycling in the United States, Canada, uh, various European nations, and other nations across the globe. For example, the plastic pact in the United States includes Clorox, Coca-Cola, Colgate, General Mills, Kimberly-Clark, Target, Walmart, Nestle, and many more. Major plastic producers or users across the Western world are really committing themselves to this movement. But there's one major problem with this, and that's most of the current methods being used to recycle plastic are not profitable. At least not on their own without subsidies or other benefits. So there are three main methods of recycling plastic. We have thermolysis, which is using heat to crack down molecules. We have solvolysis, which is using solvents to cause the dissolution of plastics, and solvation, which is a sorting process. 80 to 90% of plastics cannot be recycled profitably using these methods. And this is where the superiority of Aduro's process really shines. Over the last 12 to 13 years, Aduro has created a chemical process called hydrocomolysis, which is capable of breaking down all forms of plastic. So polyethylene, which is the most common form, as well as polypropylene, polystyrene, and potentially even more. The company currently has 7 patents on their process, 3 issued and 4 pending with more in development. Aduro's process uses water and a chemical catalyst to break down plastics or other materials into oils. Aduro does not need to do much of any cleaning or sorting of the plastics since the water will clean the plastics. There's no need to dry the feedstock beforehand since it will get wet anyways. Their reaction uses significantly less energy than the other processes, and the design is centered around scalability. So reactors can be added sort of like building blocks in a way. And the company avoids building, any expensive hydrogen plant that many of the other forms of plastic recycling need because they can actually source hydrogen equivalent catalysts through, cellulose, glycerol, or potentially components from the waste plastics themselves. So this ends up saving a lot of money. Here's a quick comparison of the standard plastic recycling process with thermolysis, also known as pyrolysis. As you can see, energy is extracted from ethylene, a form of oil, to create polyethylene, the main form of plastic. Well, to break down that plastic back into a liquid form, a massive amount of energy via heat is required, which is the red line. And the green line is Aduro's process, which uses significantly less heat due to its water usage, and with a cheaper catalyst due to the usage of that hydrogen equivalent. And this is not even mentioning the additional cost savings um, that they have compared to other plastic recycling processes. Um, Especially when it comes down to things like the transportation of plastic feedstock, which is actually usable. Um, which oftentimes some of these other processes have to use plastic from other parts of the world simply because it's so difficult to source that feedstock. But funnily enough, Aduro was originally focusing on the bitumen or asphalt recycling process, not plastics. So they're further along in the technical validation of bitumen, although the process is nearly the same. And the main difference actually being that asphalt is more difficult to break down than plastics. The development process of Aduro's technology has been broken down into three steps. We have R1, R2, and R3. R1 is lab testing. R2 is building out a pilot plant that's capable of recycling a few kilograms of plastic per hour. And R3 is a pilot plant that would be capable of recycling several tons of plastic per day. Now, Aduro has already completed an R2 pilot plant for bitumen, which was a major de-risking event for the plastics side of the business as well, since the technology has been validated at that scale. Aduro's technology was validated by, and I might butcher this here, Dr. Paul Charpentier, who has been a professor in the Department of Chemical and Biochemical Engineering at the University of Western Ontario for over 20 years now. He holds a Master of Science degree in polymer chemistry, which is what plastics are made out of, from the University of Waterloo, and a PhD in chemical engineering from McMaster. So Aduro's process has been proven to work. Aduro is currently in the process of building out the R2 pilot plant for plastics, and it's nearly a guarantee that the plant will be operational because of their work with bitumen. The management states that the only question now really is how effective their process is going to be. Um, so the technology has been proven, and the main variable Aduro needs to prove now is scalability. The R2 plant for plastics is expected to reach completion at the end of August, or more likely in September. So this is quite a near-term catalyst, with the R3 plant set to be completed sometime in 2023. Aduro currently has around $4 million after their latest private placement, 1 to 2 million of which will be used to finish the R2 plastic pilot. The company will need approximately 5 million to finish the R3, so the company will potentially have to raise money, and that is unless they receive grants or funding from industry players, which is certainly a real possibility. Now, margins depend on what Aduro's partners are seeking, but if the partner just wants to license the technology, this is an example of the potential numbers. In a licensing model, Aduro doesn't have to spend any money, so this is quite a high margin side of the business. Aduro would get around 20% of the revenue from any project. And there are various examples of fuels that they could create from the waste plastic. That gross margin of 44 and 49% respectively is what the builder of the recycling plant would make. So if Aduro were to construct and operate a plant themselves, they would be getting those gross margins. Aduro does plan on building some plants and operational hubs to showcase and test their process. But the hope there is that there's plenty of licensing deals made, so we make that extremely high margin revenue as a majority. So this is a financial forecast from the company. As you can see here, while they are testing the technology and conducting customer trials for the next 2 years, so that'll be little revenue on that front so far. This will certainly be a long-term hold because of that. Although I do believe that they could reach a $1 billion valuation or potentially even higher without even having a plant built, which Pure Cycle Technologies has managed to do, and more on that later. But as you can see, revenue starts to skyrocket after they have several commercial units established. And the best part is this model was done with smaller projects in mind. Aduro has mentioned that it was surprised by the level of engagement they were getting as Fortune 500 level companies have been contacting them. Um, so deals signed with one or two of these major plastic producers would immediately go beyond those 2027 numbers. Um, and like I said, the expectations here are very high profit margins. So as for the management team, Ofer Vikas is the CEO and co-founder of Aduro, who has over 20 years of experience developing and marketing technologies. Um, Most of the management team have experience in either the petrochemical, chemical, or oil and gas industries, as plastic is a derivative of petroleum. Marcus Tragstad, the CTO, and Gene Kamek, the COO, both have extensive experience in these fields. The other key ingredient the team has, especially the directors, is previous experience in M&A and commercial transactions. This will be especially vital to Aduro as they coordinate with and potentially partner with some of these large industrial companies they're in talks with. So for capital structure, the share count is around 52 million currently. Fully diluted would be 83 million. Insider ownership of the company is nearly 50%. So insiders are strictly aligned with the performance of the business and its stock. An interesting note on insider ownership: insiders originally took their ownership of the company and placed it within the trust with conditions that would allow them to receive those shares. The company actually established three milestones for insiders to receive their shares based off of their development stages. They just completed the second milestone, which was third-party validation of R2. Now the last milestone they need to complete is proving commercialization through the completion of R3. Then they will receive the remaining shares, which are those 13 million special warrants there. So the management team designed the company in a way to align themselves, with the interest of shareholders, which is quite unique and something that I've never seen any company do before. Some of the reasoning behind management's confidence in the company certainly comes from the value of the patents themselves. The CEO has stated that the company could sell the patents for at least 25 to 50 million dollars if they had to. Um, and the current market cap is around 40 million Canadian, um, around 30 million US. So there's little downside, and none of the potential upside of the company is currently being priced in if this remains true. Now, as for the upside of Aduro, we know some of the valuations competitors have or have been trading at. The two most direct comparables being Pure Cycle Technologies and Cielo Waste Solutions. Now, Pure Cycle Technologies is set to complete its first commercial plan in Q4, meaning the company has no revenues currently, and it's trading for a 1.5 billion valuation. Cielo was in the same situation, where they had reached a market cap of over $1 billion, but Cielo's stock subsequently collapsed after they failed to scale their technology. So we have two companies reaching a $1 billion valuation in a similar situation to Aduro without revenues. Um, and Aduro is currently trading for around 30 million USD. So if R2 and R3 are proven for plastics, um, where do you think Aduro's stock could be heading here? Um, I'm certainly placing a significant percentage of my portfolio on the idea that Aduro is going to be re-rated significantly here, and it will likely come towards the end of this year and into 2023. And even better, the thing that Aduro has that a company like PureCycle doesn't is that the company doesn't even rely on the plastic side of the business. The technology Aduro has developed is extremely versatile and can address multiple markets. So if they can scale as expected, this company is easily worth billions of dollars, in my opinion. With that said, I will warn you, Aduro has a private placement in April that closed on the 14th and 28th, meaning some of those shares will be unlocked this week. So there could be some downward pressure on the stock leading up to R2. But we will see how it trades. If I were them, I certainly wouldn't be selling the stock right now. Um, but I'm currently building a full position in the company ahead of R2 news in September or later this month. But yeah, that is the end of the video. If you liked it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to help me out with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching.